Fellowship. We all have heard that word, especially if we've been in the church. But usually we have a misunderstanding of maybe what that word really means. For us in New Orleans, we know how to party, so a lot of times fellowship equates to a party. We love our people, our food and drink, our music, our chatter. We know how to have a party here in New Orleans. But if that's all fellowship is for us, especially when we're in the church, then we're missing something that God intended for the fellowship to really be about. In this study, we're going to walk through one of our Calvary core values, fellowship, and seek to understand what it really encompasses, and hopefully gain a holistic picture of what Christian fellowship is all about. We're going to start today in Acts 2. It's a familiar passage for most of us. If you walk through the church at all, you've heard this description of the early church. While every week we won't study this passage, this will be our outline, our overview. And today, we want to dive into the themes of Act 2 and see what those themes are, because those themes will help us understand fellowship. Before we jump into the passage, I thought I'd share a little bit about fellowship in my life. When I went to college, I was moving cities for the first time, leaving friends and family behind, and I truly wondered what life would be like. Have you ever been there? I know many of you who have transitioned to New Orleans, you have felt this. Sometimes you leave one place for another, and you're uncertain on what God will do in that new journey. And especially for me as a young man, this was very intimidating. As I came to the University of Alabama and I searched out for my friendships, I was blessed by the fellowship of believers in a local church, and I was so grateful for what they did. They paired me up with other guys who were new to the city, gave us a few upperclassmen leaders to help guide our time, plugged us into what we called freshman Bible study. And those other freshmen in that group became one of some of the best friends in my life. Those guys to this day are some of my dearest and closest friends who I can call on in any time, any place, and share the most intimate of things with, and know they'll keep it with them. But not only that, they always tend to encourage my faith, to help me see God in a greater way. Why is that? Because the fellowship, and yes, it was fun, it was party, but also it was sitting around discussing our faith, asking hard questions of each other, and prompting what God was doing in our lives. That deep level of intimate fellowship allowed us to grow in our faith in our college days, and those friendships had lasted us a lifetime. So today, as we look to Acts 2, I want to tell you that story about those guys, Jason, Justin, and David, because those guys, my friends, are huge impacts, and they're a model in my life of what Christian fellowship truly can do. So with that story, let's jump into Acts 2. I'd like to read that with you today, and then later in your group session, you're also going to read it together. But let's read it right now. Acts 2, starting in verse 42. And they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, to the fellowship, to the breaking of bread, and to the prayers. And all came upon every soul, and many wonders and signs were being done among them. And all who believed were together and had everything in common. And they were all selling their possessions and distributing their belongings and proceeds to all as any had need. And day by day, attending the temple together and breaking bread in their homes, they received their food with glad and generous hearts, praising God and having favor with all other people. And the Lord added to their number day by day those who were being saved. I love this picture of the early church. What I love about it is this picture goes beyond 1 or 2 hours on Sunday, maybe Sunday evening or Wednesday. This picture goes beyond just an event. The church was always meant to be more than just an event to go to. It was meant to be a group of people sharing fellowship together. It truly is an important factor in our church today. You see, if we go to church one time a week for 1 hour and treat the church as an event to be attended, we will miss out on the power of what God intends to do through the local body of believers. And that power is truly unlocked with fellowship. That fellowship is more than fun, more than a party, but it is creating space for God to work. Here at Calvary, we have a definition of fellowship that we want to see our church become. Fellowship is living in Christian community and sharing life together. Again, that definition is living in Christian community and sharing life together. Not only that, we want to see that definition expanded in this series and learn deeper levels of what fellowship means. That expanded definition is biblical fellowship is a lifestyle among our fellow Christians that promotes the advancement of their faith and ultimately the spread of the gospel. We want to see our faith expanded and the gospel of Jesus Christ be made known everywhere. That's what the power of fellowship is that our faith can grow, but also the gospel can expand everywhere here in New Orleans and around the world. You see, God set up our lives as Christians not to be lone rangers. We're not meant to be all alone. God set up our lives in our faith journey so that other people may help us grow in our faith and accomplish His mission. You know, you never see a picture in the Bible where someone is better by themselves. And I know this is hard for you and your group. Some of you might be introverts in your group. Some of you might be extroverts. And as you hear these words, some of you think, oh no. And when I talk about people, some of you think, oh yes. But here's the deal. Whether you're introverted or extroverted, if you're not harnessing the power of fellowship in the right ways, you'll never see your faith increase and you won't see yourself on path with God's mission. We ultimately want to see each and every person at Calvary grow in their faith and help us spread the gospel, be on God's mission here in New Orleans. And we can only do that together. So that's why this study, that's why we start here at Fellowship as we explore the core values, because we want to see you learn to do life together in greater ways. And we pray that if you do that, your faith will grow and the gospel will be made known here in New Orleans and around the world.